I am also running a small factory in Coimbatore. Nearly 5,000 people are working. I am manufacturing gold jewelry, diamond jewelry, platinum jewelry, silver jewelry, almost whatever technology available in the world I am having. I would like to explain about COVID-19. This COVID-19, people started telling before COVID-19, after COVID-19. I asked a few people, what is before, what is after? They are saying, before COVID, we were traveling a lot, maybe 3 days a week, 4 days a week. But after COVID, we have stopped traveling. Then they are saying, before COVID, there is a lot of superiority, inferiority complex were there. Now this coronavirus has taught all are equal. Then I asked something else also. Then they said, in front of coronavirus, no superpower. Nobody is a superpower. All are same. That is also right. So in the scenario, what council is thinking, before COVID-19, people were doing business only in mostly they are doing in domestic. What we are expecting is, after COVID, people will start exporting a lot. In this connection only, we have actually we have taken this topic, boosting export through effective marketing and strategies after COVID-19. In this connection, we brought two eminent personalities. They are expert in their own field. So we want to learn more from them. I'm proud to introduce I'm proud to introduce Professor R.M. Joshi, a distinguished academician, an eminent author, and a renowned management expert. Professor Joshi is the professor and chairperson, research with the Indian Institute of Foreign Trade, spearheading institute research activities. He was awarded the prestigious Gold Medal by Indian Institute of Foreign Trade. He received his education and training from Harvard Business School, Boston. He was conducted research training programs, teaching and consultancy in several countries, including the US, China, Russia, Canada, the UK, France, Germany, Switzerland, Italy, Belgium, Netherlands, Sweden, Denmark, UAE, Singapore, Egypt, Hong Kong, Thailand, Tanzania, Oman, Bangladesh, Ethiopia, Botswana, Namibia, South Africa, Turkey, Rwanda, Uganda, Burkina Faso, Sudan, Mauritius, Seychelles, Niger, Philippines, etc. Mr. Joshi has been involved in conducting training programs for corporate executives, government officials, and diplomats, including customized programs for IAS, IFS, IRS, ITS, IES, ISS officers and foreign diplomats in India and several foreign countries. This is about Mr. Joshi. Now I would like to introduce about Dr. R.S. Ratna, presently working as an economic affairs officer in South and South ESCAP, New Delhi since August 2018. He worked in trade, investment and innovation division of UN ESCAP, Bangkok from July 2012 to August 2018. He has been working in the area of research, policy, advisory and capacity building on economic, environment and the social pillars of sustainable development. He is currently handling a project on the empowering MSME women entrepreneurs through e-commerce. During 2008 to 2010, he worked as a professor and a head center for WTO studies. Indian Institute of Foreign Trade, New Delhi. He handled the research activities on WTO and FTA or PTA negotiations. Dr. Ratna is a former civil servant and has worked for 25 years in the Government of India, mostly in the Ministry of Commerce, handling the trade policy issues and trade negotiations in WTO and FTAs. Sir, on behalf of the council, on behalf of the participant, I'd love to welcome you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Joshi, I think you can share your views about COVID-19.
Very good. You know, thank you so much, and I'm extremely thankful to Mr. Srinivas for being this, and you know, very distinguished panelist, and my very old colleague and friend, Dr. Rajan, Geeta, who has been my student. I'm extremely grateful to you to giving us an opportunity to be with the participant. I'm very happy that, as you are aware, that you know the gems and jewelry is probably the core sector in our expo, and it is you know in the 2-digit level with $37 billion of export. Gems and jewelry sector is second after the you know the crude oil sector in our expo. But now the oil price is going down. This is going to be, in terms of the value, the most important sector for export for India. Very importantly, as you are aware that you know the gems and jewelry sector, the markets are basically in the luxury segment and at the high-end segment. And with the COVID-19, as I think all of you are aware, the economies not only in India but across the world has come to almost on a standstill. Rather, I can say that the entire economy across the world is on a life support system. So sustained for some days, and there is a complete lockdown. So this is one. But I think I am very sure that India is a country with inherent skills and culturally very rich about gems and jewelry export. As you are aware that you know I think because you are in the industry, so you know better that you know almost 90, 99, 98, 99% of the you know the diamonds are being polished in this country, not because of the big population of the country, but people in this country are so skilled. As you are aware that you know India does not you know know more, or it's absolutely negligible in terms of exporting any diamond from our mines. But India is the largest supplier of diamond on the earth with 26% of the market share. Even China, if you see the China's export to the diamond and diamond jewelry is very minimal. China's major export is basically the gold and the silver jewelry, and China has 26% share in the imitation jewelry, where we are not. But India is great in terms of this. And gold, I think nobody knows on the world the way we know gold. And I think you are sitting in Coimbatore, so you know better about gold in the South India. What gold in India, I am sure that you know all of our jewelers are missing the Akshaya Tritiya sale this year. But you don't worry, because the gold sales don't take place only on Akshaya Tritiya. Gold sale in India, especially in Tamil Nadu, Kerala and the South India, start with birth of a daughter. And then you know people start buying the gold, accumulating it. But I'm very sure that you know presently the situation is not that. And I'm sure that you know about it, that in India the most gold is in the personal possession rather in the government possession, unlike in America. India has been the largest exporter of gold for many years, say 600 to 700 metric tons of gold. I think in a recent year, very few, you know, we are third, fourth. but mostly. And not only this, the India has got the 1/5 of the gold ever excavated on the earth. And same thing is on diamond and the jewelry, I tell you. In America, because if you know about, America, which is the largest market for diamond sales, and in America, you also need to understand the customer behavior. In America, no girl can imagine her being proposed without a diamond ring being gifted, which is not the case in India and other countries as well, except for in the higher income segment that is increasing. But kindly understand, India is probably the only country in America the customer has got no say in buying the diamond, because diamond ring to a girl or the first time acquisition is that of a surprise in nature. But in India, the jewelry is bought, the largest occasion for buying jewelry is marriage, like Akshaya Tritiya is coming. And the second thing is India, I think we have done a very, microscopic, market studies on the diamond and the jewelry. We have found that in India, it is the girl for which the jewelry is being bought, she does not pay for it. Only the parents pay for it. But the entire thing in India, what takes place is that, this girl has got the biggest, share or in the decision-making process, which is not in case of America. And therefore, another thing, when it comes to the quality of diamond, India is a very different market, unless, the Western pundits have said the quality, the people of this country also knows quality. But so I think these are all the consumer, the behavior aspect that you need to understand, which are our major markets. So major market for diamond basically is America and then the Hong Kong. America, you are aware that America is in a, very, very bad shape with, 45 to 50,000, deaths and more than 8,000 COVID infections now. But I think America is somewhat moving. What happens in the short term, the sale for the jewelry and the diamond sector may not be there. But what I feel is the luxury sector is one which will certainly bounce back in time to come, and which would be less impacted than other sectors. Gold is another item. Gold, as you are aware, because the gold will work as a safety net. The other thing we are selling to the diamond jewelry, our other market is Hong Kong, but Hong Kong basically it goes for re-export from Hong Kong rather than the domestic consumption. Diamond, another our market, from where the entire trading takes place. I'm sure that all of you, keep on visiting the place called Antwerp. Antwerp is, in between Amsterdam and this Belgian capital. So what happens is, but I'm sure that the entire market in Antwerp, the Dement Street is basically dominated by the Indians. That I'm very sure the European market, I think there is going to be slump. That these markets we need to look into. Gold is another market. 60-65%, of our gold jewelry is being marketed to Dubai for the domestic consumption and re-export from there. Dubai is a market, and 30 to 40% of the luxury goods are being bought in the market by overseas travel. 150 million people travel from almost every year from China to other locations. But I think all flights, tourism, travel, being at the standstill, I think the marketing has got a very new challenges across the world. So this is it. And another thing is the shopping which takes place by customer going to the market and having a shopping experience, shopping malls. So all shopping malls are closed. So this is, I think, going to impact the customer behavior and the behavior that the firms have. Now coming to the back end. Now back end, I think, there is a problem of labor availability. There is a problem of complete shutdown at certain places. Certain places, India now we have opened certain places. There is a complete lockdown at the airports. There is a complete lockdown at the transport. But slowly and slowly, I think we'll open. And I'm very sure. Then India, we have got another problem of the migrant labor. Say Surat is the biggest place where the diamond polishing is being done and diamond cutting is being done. But for the other gold jewelry and the semi-precious stones, say Jaipur and all other places which are absolutely hit. So even the production is now suffering. The transportation is suffering. And I'm very sure, and you have seen, there has been a decline in the decline in the market. The cut diamond, I think it was 41%, but I think the colored gemstone was the largest decline of 65% of the decline. So I'm very sure that you see. But I think, again, making any estimation, I think 3-4 weeks back when the IMF made estimation was 1% decline in the world GDP. Now the another is 3% decline in the world GDP. WTO has also made its forecast now anywhere between 13 to 32% decline in the overall export, which is likely to witness in 2020. So anyway, there is certainly the situation which requires, which poses extraordinary challenges, and a situation which poses extraordinary challenges requires extraordinary and innovative solution. But I'm very optimistic that, given the strength of the people of this country, and given the diversity, we are very diversified the way China is absolutely not. China is probably nowhere in terms of the diamond and the diamond jewelry export. China's basic export, one is imitation jewelry and gold and silver jewelry. We have got a complete set. But India, I'm sure that our appetite for gold is very much, because we import more. In gems and jewelry sector, we export for say $37 billion, but we import in this sector for about 60 and more billion dollars of that. So Indian domestic consumption is also there. So I think and then I think one more thing is the COVID-19 by making the transportation, travel, shopping, tour, leisure at a standstill has given new opportunities and rather given us a level playing field. Which I think the Chinese were doing, but I think there are various issues related to the product development, the product diversification, the value addition, the patenting, the way and going into the designs and exploiting all those things into the international markets. So I think with this, when the questions come, I'll be very happy to answer that. But I think I wish that, and I'm very optimistic about the people of this country, that I think India would do wonderfully well than any other country in the gems and jewelry.
Thank you, Mr. Joshi. Now, Mr. Dr. Ratna, please, you can tell about COVID-19 and what way it is affecting in industry. What is the advantage, disadvantage, please.
Thank you, Mr. Srinivasan. First of all, let me thank you on your dual role. One, that you are representing Gems and Jewelry Export Promotion Council, and secondly, for taking your time out to moderate this session. I must also thank the hosts, the Gems and Jewelry Export Promotion Council, for giving me this opportunity to share some of my thoughts with you. Especially Dr. Geeta Rani, who I know, and it's always a pleasure to interact with Professor Rakesh Mohan Joshi, my senior colleague. We worked together in IIFT, and I had a great pleasure of working with him, participating in many of the sessions which he conducted. So it's a privilege. On this COVID and the global scenario, I will pick up from where Professor Joshi has left. Let me first of all start with the fact, and we all must recognize, the current situation in India or in the global trade is unprecedented and is very alarming. Unprecedented because of the fact that we never ever a trade analyst or an economist would have ever thought that a health hazard will impact the global economy in such a manner. We always looked at protectionism, we always looked at the trade policy, we always looked at the barriers to trade, but we never realized how an epidemic can create such kind of a turmoil in the global economy. This is unprecedented because in 2008, when the global recession and economy was hit, and is starting from US and then going to Europe and certain other countries, it was mostly demand driven. But the present one, and as what Professor Joshi also said, it cuts you from both sides. It cuts you from the demand side and it also cuts you from the supply side. And I will come to it later. But this is unprecedented because your manufacturing is also suffering, your supply chain is also suffering, and your market is already down. Look at, and let me reiterate what Professor Joshi said. The WTO has predicted for 2020 a downfall in the global trade from 13% to 32%. And in this part of the world, in Asia and Pacific, that is going to be in the range of 20 to 30%. Recently, IMF came out with a report suggesting that in 2020, there will be a slip in the world economy, and the growth and the GDP will fall down by 3%, which is equivalent to $9 trillion. Now, this loss of $9 trillion is more than the combined economy of Japan and Germany. Now, where this loss of this $9 trillion will come from? Will come from the buyers, will come from the market. So definitely 2020 is going to be a difficult year. We are already in April. We do not know when this epidemic will be neutralized, when everything will become normal. If everything become normal, even restoring the supply chain, restoring the connectivity will take some more time, because government will be a bit cautious of not opening everything overnight, given the nature of the spread of COVID and the infection. Now, under these circumstances, the challenges which I foresee are many. I was looking at, and when we talk about, and especially coming back to gems and jewelry, Professor Joshi also touched upon, the oil prices. We never thought that ever the crude petroleum oil price will go into the negative and then zero. It has happened. But interestingly, if you see the prices of gold in the market, except a few dip which happened in later part of February and early January, it's showing a positive trend. So the gold prices are kind of totally decoupled with the prices of petroleum oil or the other things. And why? And that is where perhaps Gems and Jewelry Export Promotion Council and their members can see a ray of light. The positive is when the shares are falling down, the prices are crashing, the crude oil is falling, and the gold prices are going up, which means the consumers or investors find investing or purchasing in gold as an assured investment rather than going into the shares and the other methods of investment. So this could also be an opportunity for the exporters of gold and jewelry. Diamond, Professor Joshi has spoken a lot. But one more thing which we need to realize is using technology for trading at this moment of time has become very, very important. And in this regard, I would emphasize that e-commerce could be one such platform which gives you tremendous opportunity to trade within the country, outside the country. I would also like to share one more thing. Professor Joshi also touched upon the connectivity, the air transport, the sea transport. Because of COVID, the transportation system also has been affected. When we talk about free movement of supplies on essential commodities, I don't think gold anywhere in the world has been treated as essential commodity. Diamond has been treated as essential commodities. So therefore, still there are restrictions in transfer of gold, jewelry, diamond, and other things through it. I was interestingly reading one more report, which was talking about comparing the prices of, air cargo. It said that compared to October 2019 and February 2020, the freight charges had increased by 30%, looking at what the freight charges were between China to North America, and 60% between North America and Europe. So that is the appreciation in the freight of air cargo. And that also is going to be a challenging situation for the exporters from India, because the prices of gold is appreciating, the prices of freight has already been on increase, and the purchasing power of the people are also there. They have, but definitely the sentiments are that people would try to buy gold and jewelry for a better investment for future. I leave it for the time being here. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Ratna. Now I'm going for specific questions. After that, I think participants, they will also have their own questions. For that also, I think please answer. First question to Mr. Joshi. What are the basic exporters need to understand to enter a new market?
First thing I think very important is, I'm very sure that those in the jewelry sector need to understand that which are the target market they should target under the change situation. So basically they need to understand the demand for the target markets, that which are the markets where demand is. I just like to give them a very practical way to identify the market. Now, jewelry market is identified by two ways. One is, this is basically a traditional market where you are already supplying the products, which are our traditional markets. But I am very sure that COVID-19 has metamorphosed the entire marketing structure, to a very considerable extent, because of the economic restrictions and impact of this on the economy. The economies across the world are impacted in a different way. If you see, the entire European countries are likely to have somewhere between 7% negative, negative economic growth in the coming. America is going to be about I think in the current year, India is probably the only large country which is likely to go in terms of the economy 1.9%. But if you take as a calendar year 2020, our growth is also going to be only 0.5%. But India is one country which is likely to be in the positive terrain, while other countries are less. So this is one that you need to understand. I'll give you that, the exporters, I'm very sure in this webinar, the exporters are attending from a different, skill set level. But, there are some of the established exporter, you can just, make use of some simple databases. And I think if you want to go about the databases, just try the International Trade Center's trade map. I can write it here about the trade map. I can also show you also if you want. Should I show you the trade map?
You can, sir. You can.
It will take a minute. Just I'll tell you how you identify the the skill set level. I'll just show you the trade map. Just take it. Just now, I think I'll just share the screen, and it will be, just try this. I think this is that you can see is 71 is probably, if you go 71, this is the 2-digit HSITC code. It talks of all the products which are being marketed from across the world. This I was taking China, but you can see what are the, so this will tell you which are the largest market across the world. It's very simple to use. It is the trademap.org. You can log in, and I think which are the largest products which are being marketed across the world. Now, if you see, the biggest thing is the gold and the gold jewelry, which account for 18 billion. This trade is this is the all product. This account for $295 billion trade is the gold jewelry. Then comes the artificial jewelry, 108, and then comes the diamond and diamond jewelry is 107. Platinum, I think some of you might be making is 40. But I think I'm told that China is doing a lot of things into the platinum. Here you get the product wise code. But if you want to know which are the large markets, so there are two ways. One is you can find out the market for your country, but herein you can put the country. So if you can also know about the gold. So if you can know which are the largest exporters of gold on the world, but you also know about the gold jewelry. So the gold big exporters are, as you know, Switzerland. Switzerland basically gold goes and traded. Hong Kong, Switzerland, and UK are three centers. Again, this is another center where gold is being traded. But if you want to get the import of gold jewelry, I think this is the main interest area for us. Now, if you see the big importers of gold is UK, Switzerland, China, India. Anyway, India is probably the fourth largest importer of gold. So what you can do is you can go this and look into which are the large importers of gold. It also tells you the trade balance. Trade balance here tells us that the India, we have got a negative trade balance in gold and gold jewelry. We import a lot of gold and we consume this entire thing. And I think in 2019, India imported 874 metric ton of gold. India was the fourth largest importer of gold. The biggest was the UK with 1.5 this, the Switzerland, China, and India. But if you see, India was a negative trade balance in terms of the gold, but China has even the bigger negative trade balance. This means these are the countries which are accumulating gold. Now even the UK is also accumulated gold over the last year. This also tells you our, the per unit value at which the India has imported gold. Now Switzerland imported 29,000. So unit value means this was 18 karat gold, where India with a high value and even the China with even a higher value, we imported a more pure gold compared to what was imported in Switzerland. Now, this also tells you the annual growth. The India's growth in the last year was 2%. This is the last 5 years growth. But Switzerland growth in the last 5 years, this is the UK growth in the last 5 years was 20%. But now the last year, the growth in UK was 15%. In India, the growth was 0%. Switzerland was -6%. China figures are not given. So it means the India more or less in terms of the quantity, it remained the same. Switzerland, it has reduced, but I think it has increased. Now this tells you the annual, the growth in terms of the value. This is in the value, but share in the world. Now India account 10% share in the export of in the import of gold, wherein UK account for 23% in this year. But anyway, India has been the largest import. Now the gold jewelry, where to export, where to market? This is the question. But you can do it for anything. Now gold, the biggest, if I'll just tell you how. Then another thing, it goes to UK, UAE in terms of. Now you can see India. Where is our kind of we export the gold. Herein you put, and I think it is. I'm showing you a very easy tool. All the participants can just now use this tool and find out. Now where India is exporting the gold. Now if you say, this is, I think, if I'll bring my product, what are the products now we are exporting into the jewelry sector? So I think this you can find out, and this is how you identify the product and how you identify the markets. Now this is country, you make it to the product. Now this tells you in terms out of the say the total exported of say India has got this is the fourth digit. Okay, this classification of food is it? Diamond is the biggest item of export out of 37. 21, $22 billion we exported diamond last year, 19. And I think this is the latest data which you get from ITC. Then articles of jewelry, precious material. This is gold and this is silver. Now herein, if you want to know these items of gold, now, gold,
Sir,
wait.
Sir, excuse for a minute. Is there any database where the people can go and find out the right market as well as right product?
Very good.
Is there any
this is the probably easiest database that they can use is the trade map. This is
sir,
the
could you
International
please?
Trade Center.
Okay, sir.
So this is the database where they can find, and this I am showing that they can do themselves. So UAE account for 61% of our total export of gold. America account for 50% of gold, and you can open on your own own laptops and do it. And 62%. So these are the big markets. Now when this is first you have to do, you identify the product that you want to. So this will tell you how you identify product. This will tell you how do you identify the market, and I think then you can use your own strategy identifying. Then you can go into the microeconomic or the macroeconomic analysis of that particular country, the demand fluctuation on those country, depending upon the COVID-19. What is going to be the fluctuation on this country. These data you can get from various sources, including IMF, World Bank, any site. But I think this is one data that you get. And because our entire marketing of the gold jewelry is concentrated in UAE, but what is required now to the exporters is we need to diversify in terms of we need to diversify in terms of the markets and in terms of the product. So depending upon your own requirement, but this I'm telling you a tool that you can use to market. And you also know what is the unit price that we are realizing and what the others are realizing in these markets. So that's from my side. If there is any specific question, I'll be very happy to answer that.
Thank you, Mr. Joshi, for elaborate reply. Dr. Ratna, do you want to add to that question?
No, I think he has already stated and demonstrated very successfully about how to look at the market, how to look at the trends of the trade. So I don't think I would like to add.
Okay.
Rather, some of the question answers were being there, so I am trying to typing to respond to them. So some of them have already typed and relayed. Professor Joshi, there are specific questions for you. If you click and question and answer below, then you can type the answer for everybody. I didn't give the answer because the questions were specifically mentioned.
Did you type the answer? No, I can tell the answer like this.
Yeah, so you can see the question and answer.
Okay.
It's there at the below. You go at the bottom of it, you will find Q&A, and you click, and you will find some of the questions.
Dr. Ratna?
Yes.
Sir, is it the right time to go for the free trade agreement with the countries? If so, then what should be the parameters to go for the trade agreements?
Honestly speaking, this is not the good time to go for FTAs because we do not know when the situation will normalize.
Okay.
India has just pulled out of RCEP negotiation. We had a lot of concerns from import surge coming in from China and from other countries, agriculture, automobile, etc. Definitely, I do understand on gems and jewelry sector, the competition from some of our FTA partners is not as much to the domestic industry as there are for other sectors. But despite that, there are several issues. But I think selection of countries. Now, India has started negotiating with European Union a comprehensive economic cooperation agreement, I think almost 10 years ago. And at that moment of time, I was also a part of that team. But somehow after 7-8 years of negotiation, India felt that there is need to go slow down in negotiating with them. The another FTA which could be of some use perhaps to the industry would be FTA with EFTA, where Switzerland, Norway, Liechtenstein, etc. are members, and we know many of the gold and gold bars we import from EFTA countries. The problem is when you look at in terms of export promotional activities, there is a revenue angle. And so the bullion and gold has never been in the duty-free list of India in any FTA. So they have to be imported under payment of the duty, unless you are importing under the export promotion scheme, which is allowed under the export-import policy, where you can import duty-free or you can source the gold from the canalizing agencies and then you re-export. But definitely EU, and we heard a lot about when Trump was coming, that India may have an agreement or start trade negotiation with USA. Of course, that may also bring some kind of a challenge to other sectors. But given the fact that, and as what Professor Joshi was telling, India's largest market on gold and jewelry and diamond, if it is towards US and EU, then definitely if you enter into a free trade agreement with these countries, you have a better possibility of getting a market access. But the FTA will not be only in this sector. So there would be other sectors which will be covered. And so the government and other sectors of the industry will also have to take a view into the benefit, the challenges which may emanate from those FTAs. But I think this is a good time for Gems and Jewelry Export Promotion Council and its members to debate this issue of FTA. FTA cannot be signed and cannot be negotiated overnight. It will take minimum 3 to 5 years to start negotiation and conclude and implement. So focusing on which is your important market, whether in those market, what is the duty when you are exporting it to them, and whether FTA will bring those duties down to zero, and then only you will get a benefit. And if you get an answer to these markets, their duties, and a possibility of them bringing our export interest items into zero duty, this exercise I think is important for the Export Promotion Council to get engaged into now.
Sir, if you may allow me, I have a fundamental question. Sir, with any country, may we go for one product negotiation, say, for example, only for gold jewelry? Can we go for a FTA with any of the countries, say Turkey, only for one product? Is it possible? Government is allowing this type of things, because as per my knowledge, minimum 10, 15, 20 product we are at a time considering. Is it possible for we can approach to the government for only one product negotiation, and that to the countries, the value addition part should be strictly followed. Otherwise, I have a small example. In Indo-Thai FTA, we suffer a lot because our entire domestic market is disturbed. Lots of Thailand product is coming, but that is not really manufactured by the Thai people. That is coming from the geographical proximity countries, the neighbor countries. And Thai is giving a country of origin certificate officially for that product even, and exporting to the India. So in that scenario, is there any punishment system if any negotiated country is violating any of the FTA? That is one thing. Second thing, can we negotiate only one product only one product with a particular country as per our choice. Is that allowed?
Okay, let me get into this one by one. Theoretically, answer to your question whether India can or any country can get into an agreement on only one item. The answer is yes and no, depending on the country with whom you are going to negotiate. If you are going to negotiate the agreement with a developing country, the answer is yes, because with a developing country, you have a flexibility to negotiate a preferential trading agreement, and preferential trading agreement can be even for one item. Like we had a preferential trading agreement with Afghanistan, where the total number of items covered are only 8. So when you talk about having an FTA only for gems and jewelry sector, not one item, definitely there would be some item. It is possible, but this is only possible with a developing country or a least developed country. But be mindful that when you enter into this negotiation, you also will have to see the aspirations of the other country. So while you may want only one sector, they may want India to open 10 sectors for it. And if they want India to open 10 sectors for it, you will have to negotiate. So theoretically with a developing country, yes. With developed country, no. Because with the developed country, there is a rule in the WTO, and especially the regional trading agreements are covered under Article 24 of GATT. The conditionality in the GATT is that for a free trade agreement, substantial all trade should be covered. Now with one item, one sector, or 100 items or 500 items, this never covers substantial all trade. So if you are looking for a developed country and you want to go into this FTA on only one item or two items, that is not possible legally. Coming to the question on Thailand, there are two issues. When we were negotiating with Thailand, at that moment of time, if you see, the rules of origin was 40%. And we consulted actually at that moment of time, Gems and Jewelry Export Promotion Council, and we consulted some of the top industries. There are only few items which are covered under India, Thailand early harvest. There are more items which are covered under India and ASEAN, under which also Thailand is a member. So you need to first know, when you are talking about import coming in from Thailand, you are talking about India, Thailand early harvest, or you are talking about India, ASEAN FTA, because the rules of origin in these two agreements are different. Now, India, Thailand early harvest, the rules of origin is much more relaxed, but be mindful of one more fact. In both of these agreements, there is an operational certification procedure, which makes it imperative for the importing country customs to check the genuineness of the certificate of origin which has been issued by the exporting country. And why I am bringing it, if you are convinced that the rules of origin either of India, Thailand early harvest or India, ASEAN FTA is being violated, you can approach customs and you can tell them, especially you have to go to the DRI, in telling him that this kind of certificate of origin where they are certifying, say 35% value addition, we know gold and diamond, whatever processing you will do, it can never generate 35% value addition because the raw material is so costly, the value is so high, and so it will not be possible. And that case, if you build in, then the customs would surely intervene into such imports which is happening. It also has the power to go to Thailand to inspect those factories and check whether the conditionality of the rules of origin are complied with or not. This happened in case of Sri Lanka. This happened in case of Nepal, and it can also happen in case of Thailand, provided you build out a case. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dr. Ratna. Now this question is to Mr. Joshi. Gold precious metal jewelry is a luxury product. After this post-COVID-19 economic era, how we will establish our product and get the right value, not only for jewelry, but also for our innovation, design, heritage products?
Very good. Now, post COVID-19, as you have, we have already discussed, the impact is going to be certainly, injurious. And what is going to be the impact of COVID-19 is very difficult to forecast right now. Although we are receiving, minus 3% decline in the total economy, 13 to 32%. But all this, I think we have taken into the best, very optimistic and the pessimistic assumptions as well. But nobody knows, as whether in the 6 months the things would come under control, or it may take a year, or it may take a longer. So I think it's a very, very uncertain terrain in which I think we are now moving forward. We absolutely do not know, when the production facilities and markets, would get open. But I think now under this circumstance, there will be two types of companies which I feel in the jewelry industry. One will be those who will think that I think a calamity has come and, to pay to the labor and let's close and, do something else. Another is in case, but jewelry, it seems very difficult because I'm very sure the investment in jewelry is very high, because high value for money, unlike the other industries. And I think you have got a very, very, the technical talent, as I think, most of you are owning jewelry businesses. So, the two things, getting the right skilled people, very important, and getting the people of the right integrity is another thing. And therefore, these are the same people, who rotate in the industry. Now, under these circumstances, the companies which would have a long-term vision and a sustained effort to capture the market. And let me compliment to Gems and Jewelry Export Promotion Council, and I think all of you in that you are making a very, very positive use of your time by organizing the online webinars and training the people, and probably it is the right time for the capacity building. And let me compliment Mr. Srinivas and your colleagues for this. Because there could be never such time. Otherwise, I think the right people in the industry will never be available. They are very busy. Their bosses calls them, their subordinates call them. So the only thing the companies need to focus at all levels, not only this kind of a training, but in case of production training, skill upgradation, because we do not know. But certainly, bad times will be over and good time will come. However it comes, I am not going to discuss with that. But so one thing is the investing in the training. Second, once the markets open, immediately we are not expecting the customers, the mobility would remain restricted for quite some time. Could be 6 months, 1 year, could be 2 years. The restriction in mobility of the buyers. Now, as I told you, 30-40% of the buying in case of the jewelry and luxury items take place once people travel overseas. India, say you go to Dubai, you buy it, you go to Switzerland, you buy it, people go to Antwerp, you go to Antwerp, everywhere, near the railway station and the airport, they say the best diamond is available in the Antwerp, people go there and buy. Knowing, and I'm very sure that they will not find a better diamond that they can buy in Mumbai or Surat, but people buy there. So that restriction is going to remain for 6 months to a year or 2 years. Second thing, even in the domestic markets, the movement of people going to the shopping mall for what we call in marketing as experiential marketing or shopping purposes would remain restricted. Now, the second thing comes is, and therefore, I think we need to focus more on digital marketing, digital, and digital promotion. And not, not only the digital marketing, but I think what is going to happen is probably the multi-channel marketing or the omni-channel marketing. You need to make use of every channel, not only internet. You use all the social media, WhatsApp, Facebook, And I'm sure most companies are doing it. And the luxury companies, especially the brands like Prada, Louis Vuitton, which were never using the online marketing, have started using it. And I'm very sure it will transform how the customer behaves, and it will also transform how the company behaves. Now, what happens is, before the customer reaches to the market, it is the right time that you need to establish, you know, a linkage with your own customer, and you know, long time loyalty with the customer, that when customer goes, either he goes to Antwerp or Surat, he asks for products of a particular brand. One thing which have been missing in India is in terms of what we call as a branded jewelry. Most of us have been in the segment of what we call the trading of the jewelry, and brands is missing. And I think this is probably the right time to create the brand. I think once the market opens up, and I'm very sure, because you sell the market, and you know, especially in terms of the diamond, how the price of the diamond is being decided. You know, diamond goes on the consignment basis. Consignment basis is you need a very trusted person there, and you are aware that a lot of diamond which comes back as well. So it is the time for building a bondage between the customer and the companies. And I think the backend, you know, activities which the firms can do right now, at least the marketing activity, and you know, having a bond with the customer, B2B seller. Now, you know, diamond nobody thought of, because 20 years before, when I was writing the book, I used to write that online marketing is only for the products which are not the customer products. And I think I interacted with the jewelry manufacturers at Jaipur and Surat and various places. And I think I was saying that I think it will take time for jewelry to come with the online and digital marketing. But I think the time has come now that each one of you need to have online marketing, and probably, you know, the digital marketing, use of the multi-channel approach, forging a bond with the customer. And what is very important is that, you know, once the customer comes back into the market, it is the time that to innovate. I think India, in terms of the design, as you are aware, that Chinese designs are absolutely wonderful. You know, incidentally, I also visit a lot of art fairs and art exhibitions across Europe. And I think in November, December, I was in a place called Florence. Now, in Florence and Venice, there was a Venice Biennial, Florence Biennial. A lot of jewelers were there from China. And I think in one exhibition, there were 50 to 100 jewelers coming with great designs in the imitation jewelry, coming with great designs in the platinum jewelry. I did not find a single Indian jeweler there. So I think that is where the design comes. And I think we need to, and Indian jewelers need to move, you know, above the value chain. Rather than being at the low end of the value chain, you need to go upward end of the value chain, so that your price realization is better. And I think I tell you, there is an opportunity in this calamity. People across the world have lost trust in China. Trust in India is probably the most. I think we have been discussing, we discuss every day that the companies are finding the solutions to find out the places, you know, away from China. This is one. Another thing, in various cases, you know, the say consumer electronics, pharmaceuticals, textile industry, where the integration of the supply chain was there, and the supply chain got disrupted because of China. But I think jewelry is something, except for the things are being traded from Hong Kong. It is the opportunity why the diamond and the gold and the silver jewelry, you know, goes to you export to Hong Kong to be retraded and re-exported there. Why can't you make it in India? I think it's a challenge for the Indian jewelry industry, and I'm very sure that your Gems and Jewelry Council can, can make use of this time, you know, apart from the training, you know, to discuss with your, members, and make India a trading hub for gems and jewelry. You know, the Indian lot of gold goes to Dubai, 60-65% of the gold, and from Dubai it goes elsewhere. Why can't it travel from India? No, Dubai is another market which will be Dubai. Basically, the economy was on the services based economy. The major part of Dubai, people used to come to Dubai. There was shopping in Dubai. Now I think it has come absolutely on a standstill. absolutely on a standstill, and I'm not very sure that it is going to open. Even if it open, the frequency will not be there. So I think India is probably the ideal place from where we can start the work from this. And I think Srinivasan Saab, you are sitting in Coimbatore. Now I think Mumbai has come under cloud. Why don't you develop, some of the locations in like Coimbatore and the other locations better than Mumbai? Because I think now I'll tell you, the people will say, globalization is already under cloud. Most economists have, worked on this, that we have to globalize. Every politician, even municipal corporation used to say, the globalized economy, you are not globalized, you are not integrated to the value chain. They made so now everybody say that don't get integrated to the global value chain. Another thing, the urbanization has seen a problem, people coming in the Mumbai slums. But now the time has come when people in Mumbai have started thinking that let's go outside Mumbai and probably, life is better. So I think that tier two, I tell you, in terms of demand as well, the demand in China, America, everywhere is likely to come, not in tier 1 cities, tier 2 cities. Now, I think I've been talking to my friends across Belgium and Netherlands and America. Even Paris has become very difficult today. The people who have got some accommodation to live, they are moving from urban location to rural location till the COVID-19 comes. If they get job opportunity, they will stay there. So I think it is the time has come for the Indian jewelry industry to move it from Bombay, Jaipur and Surat to the big cities and make yourself as a hub for trading. And I think this is what we have been missing. India has been the largest consumer of gold, but the gold is being traded through the London Metal Exchange and not through India. Gold is retraded through Dubai and Hong Kong, but not through India. The diamond and the silver jewelry through Hong Kong, but not through India. I think it is the time for you to make this, because people will be afraid to go to China. People will be afraid to go to New York. People today will be afraid to go to Paris, but they'll be very happy to come to Coimbatore. They will not be happy to come to, Delhi and Bombay, but they'll be happy to come to Coimbatore. So I think you need to find out an opportunity. And, there are no business people wiser than the gems and jewelry who make, tons of money. So I think it's an opportunity. So only thing is, these are the special times. And I think, as Dr. Ratna has said, that I think the unprecedented time requires unprecedented, transformation of the industry. I'm very sure that it will transform the gems and jewelry industry in this country. And I think India will emerge as a great power in gems and jewelry. Anyway, but it depends upon you.
Thank you, sir. Actually, we are on the job. Definitely, we will do it, sir. Council will do the job.
Great.
Sir, this next question is Mr. Dr. Ratna. So what should be role of government as a export facilitator?
Okay, I would like to continue again from where Professor Joshi said, and I would like to take it a little bit forward, and that brings into the role of a government facilitator. Let us accept a few facts. World recognizes India in diamond exports, but what kind of processing in diamond? Only cutting and polishing.
Correct.
Not setting of a jewelry for the diamond. Now, all of you know that cutting and polishing does not get you the highest value in this entire chain of from the rough diamond to the finished jewelry. Now, I know the same diamond is cut and polished in India. It is taken to Thailand. It is studded into a jewelry form, and they sell it with at least 200 to 300% value addition into it. Now, this is the time, and that is where I am picking up from Professor Joshi, that when he talked about, the Chinese going and seeing other things, I think this is a challenging time where the industry can come out with a plan as to how we are or we can get into upper value chain of this manufacturing in the whole sector of gems and jewelry. We have been into loose, but Can we bring in those international designers in India? Can we have those brands established in India? Can we promote? It will be a struggle, definitely, yes. But this is the time to rise to this occasion and start exploring. I discuss and I say to some of my friends when I talk to them, you know, especially in the Indian context, most of the reforms have been brought by the government only under challenging times, not when we were shining. This is a challenging time, and this is a time when policy interventions can be brought in to help the industry. So coming back to the facilitator role of the government, definitely some of the interventions have been done by the government. Very recently, RBI announced with some of the financial and fiscal incentives, which would be useful for the industry. Much need to be done because this is a sector which requires a huge capital. Your working capital, if it gets stuck up for a month or two, you lose a lot of money gets blocked in. And so government facilitation could be in two things. One, use of electronic methods in, I don't know how is the GST refund and other things working in gems and jewelry sector. But I am aware for the other sectors where people interact and they say that a lot of money is being blocked down and working capital is blocked in. This is one such sector or one such issue where the domestic industry could go to the government and make a request. Secondly, many of the clearances and other things are already electronic, but need to be made more successful. Thirdly, whenever you are trying to promote your brand, whenever you are trying to promote export, whenever you are participating in trade fair, definitely these are the specific places where government intervention would be necessary as a facilitator. And when we talk about a government, I was about to reply to one of the questions, but my turn came. One of the way the government can help you is through the embassies or the commercial missions abroad. The basic purpose of having commercial missions in many of the countries was to promote export. But how many of you, I can ask you if that question, how many of you have benefited because of these commercial wings in the embassy? How many of you are really aware that there is a commercial attaché which is existing in that particular country? And that is where the government need to intervene, because they also need some handholding, they need some capacity building to understand the situation. And one of the prescriptions at this moment of time in this COVID is that these embassies and commercial missions can play a very, very important role in promoting your export interest to these countries. They can talk because they know there is a market. They can have a meeting. They can bring in and talk to the top importers of that country. They have the database. They can organize through, these webinars and meetings, a buyer-seller meet right now, so that immediately when all these restrictions are over, you already have negotiated with a buyer, you already have identified a market, and it's only the shipment which has to go. So early movers advantage is very, very important. And I think this is a time where even Ministry of Commerce, we read the report, and you would have also seen, the export is down by around 30% in month of March. So April is a total lockdown, so it's going to be further down. May maybe recover, not recover, we don't know if 3rd of May things will improve. So we are seeing a slump, and there will be a pressure on the Ministry of Commerce, officers as well as minister, to boost export. And this is a time when you can go as a Gems and Jewelry Export Promotion Council already Professor Joshi has shown who are the major importers in the world for these products. You may not be exporting, but there is a demand that we know. So there is a market. And because of these restrictions, there would definitely be a void in that market because your competitor also may not be supplying to them. And this is the time when, if through embassies and commercial missions, you can get in touch with those importers. And if you can break it through, then you would be very successfully breaking into some of your competitors through these interventions of the government. Thank you.
So, Mr. Ratna, this question is related with what answer you have given. No, it's a continuation only. See, right now, out of global import, India is exporting 10% of the jewelry.
Right.
Okay. In India, as on date, actually, no, supply and demand. Supply is more, demand is less. Because of the change of style, change of pattern, change of requirement, supply is more and demand is less. Because of this, in India, it is a cutthroat competition is happening. Now it is a very good opportunity because in as and date, India, all type of technology available, skilled manpower is there, education is there, everything is there. But only thing is lack of knowledge. Actually, whatever the other 90%, no, their requirement is different. Our manufacturing is different. For this, actually, we have to do market study. We have to participate in the international exhibitions. What way government can help? Specifically, I'm asking.
That is what I was saying. See, right now, and I do not know, in another 3 months or 4 months, you will be or anybody will be able to participate in trade fair.
Okay.
So there will be a travel restriction.
Okay.
So the option is, do you sit at home and crib? Do government say, oh, yes, we want to help you, but let these restrictions be lifted? Then you lose that time of 4 months. And that is why I'm giving you this prescription, that the time to act now, if you want, is, as you rightly say, we have all electronic gadgets. I mean, I know there are around 200 participants who are participating in this webinar, thanks to Gems and Jewelry Export Promotion Council. But can government act as a facilitator? Can, through embassies or these commercial missions, can they connect Indian exporters with a particular country importers by arranging a buyer-seller meet online, rather than waiting for another 6 months to go for international trade fair? Is it possible? If it is possible, then one is, you are face to face with a potential buyer. He is also looking for an opportunity. See, you are looking for an opportunity to export, but many of the Indian exporters are also dependent, at least in gold and jewelry and diamond, on import. So you have an inventory, but you don't have an inventory for 6 months or 1 year, right? So you also will come into a vacuum if these restrictions continue. And if you are overwhelmed with the orders, you will not have a raw material even to source after some time because of these restrictions. How will you get your raw material? Where do you get the rough diamond from? The prices will go up. As you say, demand and supply, the prices of sourcing your raw material will go up. But will the finished product market prices will also go up? I don't think it will go up to that extent, to the extent your raw material prices will go up. That means you will have to cut down into your value addition. You have to cut down into your profitability. And one more thing which I wanted to touch upon is the labor. Whenever you are looking into a diamond, whenever you are looking into a jewelry, it's not all Indian manufacturers are into automated machine. You have a lot of labor. Now, many of the factories are suffering, and I am sure even many of the gold and jewelry exporters would be suffering from this shortage of the labor. Cutting of the diamond, polishing of the diamond is a purely man work. But do you have 100% presence of your labor under the lockdown condition? Definitely no. But this time you need to utilize as an exporter in talking to the potential buyers, trying to get the orders so that as soon as these restrictions are lifted, You don't need to wait to participate in another trade fair to get some new orders. And that is where the government can help. As and when the trade fairs will happen, government already gives you some amount of money through market access initiative. I don't think that is a sufficient amount of money to be given to participate in trade fair. But I think as a stimulus for the time being, because the economic recession because of the COVID is going to be there even in 2021. So one of the ways through which the government can be a facilitator would be to raising the value cap of MAI, Market Access Initiative, for allowing you to participate with a greater financial contribution to participate in the trade fair. But that will come after 6 months or 7 months or 1 year, we don't know.
Mr. Ratna, I'm very specific about the market study, because actually, as and at whatever exports is happening, it is for Indian origin people, right? But
Right.
actually, when we want to capture some other market, definitely we should understand their design, okay, their technology. Then according to that, we have to develop. Actually, it is a very big exercise.
This
All
is
over
big
the
problem.
world, we have to travel. For that, government will help.
Government can help, can subsidize. That's what I'm saying. Government can subsidize in the sense through when you are trying to come out with a new design, right? Which is catering to a European market. Because definitely the jewelry or a har which you make for an Indian customer cannot be fitting into a European or American. She will not like that design.
Correct.
Right? So the design has to change. Now, for that, devising that design, you need a designer, you need somebody. You have to pay. Can government subsidize? At this moment of time, it can, not permanently, but it can. Market access initiative of the Ministry of Commerce has these scheme, but these schemes need to be tweaked in, because mostly it was only to participate in trade fair and some subsidy in getting the stalls and subsidy in your travel cost, etc. But that money for at least last 6 months or 6 months will be blocked. So the budget is already there and they are not in a position to spend that money. So this is a good time when you can go to the government and you ask, you already have a money under MAI scheme, which you were to give it for the travel in international participation. 6 months up to June, there is no trade fair where we will participate. So why don't you change that money into this kitty, which is for developing the design? It is possible.
Correct, Mr. Ratna. That's right. That is the expectation of youth. Actually, so many youths know they are ready, but they don't know how to penetrate into international market. Whatever answer you have given, definitely it is useful for so many youths. Again, this question is Mr. Joshi. What are the ways to reduce the cost of export consignment to make Indian exporter more competitive? Mr. Joshi, please.
I think, yes. Very important is, as you are aware, that, what we are exporting and what is required in the market is missing. So what happens is the India's export have to be demand oriented rather than what we call it as an ethnocentric approach, and the way the Chinese are doing it. Now, to reduce the cost, I think, the people are forced to reduce the cost by way of the, lockdowns. And the best thing is that using the digital technology and the online technology to reduce the cost is probably one of the most important means to reduce the cost. And doing a, complete homework before this. But what is very important is, more than reduce the cost is to improve the profit, and to improve the profit, as a professor of marketing, I know that do what the market want and don't do what you want. You have seen in the last 10-15 years, it was only the Indians which had a complete control over the Antwerp diamond market, wherein now I think slowly, even so far Chinese have not come, but I think the Chinese are also trying to get the control of that, even the diamond. Another thing, if you see what is going to happen is then, that we need to be very, very agile. Marketing is required. Marketing has to be very, very dynamic. So what is very important is that, you know, you need to understand what the market requires, and we need to come back and produce the goods, which exactly what the Chinese have done. Now you have asked, you know, my colleague Dr. Ratna, what government can do. That is great that, you know, government should do whatever they do, but I think government is not the not the right you know, agency that will go to the market and find out market for you. Only the exporters can find out the market for you. And as you are aware, the EPCs were made with the management control, with the business itself, because I think the businesses know more about the market rather than the bureaucrats knowing about the market. So I think there should not be a problem in your identifying the market. And but I think whatever the problems are there, this we have done into another research study, which I'll not discuss it here. But you know, what we call as the governance of the EPCs is a another issue. But I think the people from the industry being at the helm of the affair, you are already in touch of the market, and this information need to percolate down. And when you asked about the, you know, the MEI assistance is already there. And the only thing is, you know, how you are making use of the. I tell you one more thing, because, you know, when all production, all economic activity is coming to a standstill, I'm telling you from a purely professor's perspective, government will not have money. So how do you expect government to give you more money in time to come? Government. So it has to come only through you and not through the government.
Okay.
All the cost cutting is, and you have to be innovative not only in the designs, but you have to be innovative in terms of the shipment. You have to curb the cost of logistics and you know, whatever. Now I think the cutting cost, you are aware, I'm sure that you are you know, you are organizing virtual trade fairs, live streaming. Even the luxury brands in China have started. I'm not very sure that how many the Indian brands have started the, you know, the virtual reality exhibitions and the products live streaming, which I'm sure the most luxury brands have started now across Europe and America. So I think you need to you know, follow the innovative technology for that. And I'm very sure that the Indian jewelers have got a better you know, the better hold in the European market than the Chinese have got as on date. Because I think you have got your own people placed across European countries and the big market. So I am very sure that you know, using of the innovative technology will help them. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Joshi. This is a question to Mr. Ratna. Sir, is it possible to have a close link between trade policy and promotional activity? If so, then how?
Indeed, you know, every trade policy, when you are talking about, has the link to for the promotional activity. Say we talked about FTA. What is the FTA? FTA is also to get you a preferential market access. The whole foreign trade policy, which gives the incentives. There is one full chapter for gems and jewelry is an incentive. So definitely yes, there is a link. The only thing is what I feel, these issues need to be looked into a perspective of time. What policy is important today, it need to change maybe after a few years, because the world dynamics, our own manufacturing, our own industry upgradation has changed. So, and that is where industry's input, that is where export promotion councils become very, very important, because I know whenever there is an annual exercise of review of the foreign trade policy, export promotion councils are consulted. And that is where is the time when intervention from the private sector to the government in updating them with the latest developments and what kind of policy interventions are required at this moment of time becomes very, very important.
Okay. Dr. Ratna, one more question also. What is the intellectual property right? How it can help to establish the Indian jewelry brands through IPR by encasing this situation?
I was saying, and Professor Joshi also talked about Louis Vuitton, right? Intellectual property right is nothing but a kind of your brand image, and it gives you a legitimate brand image. You talk about in gold, we talk about hallmark, right? So there are many Italian designers, there are many world designers who are known, De Beers, right? In India, we have this Tanishq. So they are all brand. They operate through their own trademarks. They operate their own brand imaging. So basically, intellectual property rights gives you a legitimate right globally to create your own brand, and through this brand, you are established world over. Branding gives you two things. It doesn't give you only the imaging, but it also gives you a higher price for your product, which otherwise you will not get that much because you don't have a brand. And when I was talking about the case of a diamond, that in India, what we do, we import rough diamond, we cut and polish, and then these loose diamonds are exported to other countries who then convert into a jewelry or design. There they are creating a brand. But when we are exporting cut and polished diamond, we don't have an intellectual property right over it, because the single diamond which we have cut and polished doesn't belong to us. So we do not get the actual right price for the work which we are doing. And therefore, in the international market, to get into a high value added product, it is very, very important for Indian exporters in gems and jewelry to get into the brand image.
Thank you very much, sir.
Sir, I also have to attend another meeting in 3 minutes.
Yeah, I know.
I would be leaving soon, but anyhow, thank you very much for this session. It was very interactive. It was also learning, and I learned a lot even from Professor Joshi and your intervention, as well as some of the questions. So thank you very much, and I'm sorry I have to leave it slightly.
No problem, Mr. Ratna. I think you can give. Actually, no, Mr. Joshi will stay with us. He can answer one or two questions what the audience asked.
Yes. Oh, I see a lot of questions to him, but he's a master guru in marketing, so he can answer all these things just like this. Thank you, everybody. Thank you very much. Namaskar.
Thank you, Doctor.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Madam, you can ask the question, madam. Jitarani?
हाँ जी sir. Sir, almost all questions are answered directly by the speakers through typing the message. So only like the constructive questions which are left, you can like raise to
before conclusion. I would like to give information. As Gem and Jewelry Export Promotion Council, actually, we are going to open nearly 20 common facility center across India. Then actually, we are planning for institutes also. Then actually, we are going to open role model workshop across India where the manufacturing activities are happening. So this is to boost the export. We are doing this job. Jitarani, can we conclude this?
Sir, one question left. Apart from all this design and everything, we are utilizing this time, the leisure time. Is there any other strategy where we can directly reach to the end user and we can like directly do the promotional activity to a particular country for the end user? Not for a like specifically wholesaler group, B2C category के लिए. Is there any specific strategy which sir would like to address?
No, B2C otherwise reaching is very difficult unless you have a brand, because I think the product what we are exporting is goes from B2B. if there is no brand. B2C, you reach only if there is a brand, and there is certainly a strategy for India. As you have seen that, long back I wrote a case on, the jewelry marketing in India, wherein I think on this I find that India has been the only country in the world wherein the foreign diamond jewelry brand could not penetrate. India's big diamond jewelry brands are Tanishq, Nakshatra, Admas, Asmi, wherein even in China, the brands like, the Cartier and Tiffany could penetrate, but not in India. Indian jewelry industry is very strong. So to reach the customer across is you need to make your brand internationally known and enter into the market like the some of the Titan brand of the Tatas entered into that, but I think they did not do well in terms of the watch industry. But you need to build brand to enter into the end customer is probably the only way, because the confidence of that come. And another thing to reach to the end customer, what is extremely important is use the digital marketing and the omni-channel marketing. By way of that, slowly you can penetrate into the market. And I think my end advice is that all our exporters, two things. One thing is you need to move up the channel from the low value chain to the upper end of the value chain. Go for branded, branded products in terms of the jewelry, all in terms of the the diamond, gold, silver, and more importantly is the artificial jewelry, imitation. What is very important is again making the coming out with the innovative designs and patenting those designs. And this, China has very quickly gained 26%, 27% share in the imitation art. And I think we need to come out of the only polishing of diamonds to make the jewelry and make it the branded jewelry. And very important to that is, I wish that, once this, the lockdowns are over across the world, more people from India, at the operational level, visit the international markets, go to the fair, go to the markets, look at the designs. As you find the designs which are being sold in Brussels and Paris and Antwerp are very different than the designs that you find in Chennai or Trivandrum. So we need to what we call as a customization of the product for them rather than selling the innovative product. And I think with this, I am very sure that your council is very proactive in organizing these things. Use this time in preparing the industry better for the markets, and I am very sure that you'll succeed.
So there is a last question from the participant side. Upper movement is okay, fine, but that is not possible for every exporter, especially the SME exporter, the small exporter. So the small exporter is asking, what is my survival strategy in this COVID period, after COVID period?
Survival strategy for the small exporters is, I think, use this time in two things. One is to for innovation, bringing out better designs and increasing your skill set level. And another thing is engaging your customers. Let's say B2B customer, mostly I'm very sure B2B customer, not the B2C, but even if you have a B2C customer, which are the institutional buyers abroad, then with them have a close relationship and be prepared as soon as the lockdowns open, that I think you should be able to make use of this calamity into an opportunity.
Mr. Joshi, really it is a very good discussion. It is an eye opener for exporters. Definitely because of this discussion, India's export will increase. Thank you very much, Mr. Joshi.
Thank you, Srinivasan ji.
Okay, bye-bye.
Thank you, sir. Thank you all the participants.
I would leave the meeting.
Yeah.
Yes, sir, you please.
Thank you, sir.